Scorsese has shown his versatility in filmmaking by directing acclaimed films across different genres, from psychological thrillers like Shutter Island to gritty documentaries like Raging Bull and historical narratives in Killers of the Flower Moon. While Scorsese's primary focus remains on American crime and gangster films, his directing style holds variation. Growing up in New York's Little Italy and spending most of his time in the cinema, Scorsese's upbringing has had a clear influence on his films. Raging Bull, The Departed, and Gangs of New York all depict crime and gangster culture in America, yet Scorsese is able to craft each film uniquely. However, there are both thematic and technical elements that make Scorsese's films notable. Another prominent aspect of his upbringing is his Catholic faith, which has often intertwined in his filmmaking thematically. The majority of Scorsese's films follow themes of morality and forgiveness. Mainly, his most popular films all largely center around sinners trying to repent for or justify their transgressions. This is reflected in how much he utilizes voiceovers, where these sinners are confessing transgressions,
and now it's all over.
And we're often placed in a position of judgment or forgiveness. Characters are often flawed and multifaceted and drive the story, leaving viewers to think on their own morals.
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
Cinema is a matter of what's in the frame and what's out. Martin Scorsese. It is true that the character never tells us what he's feeling, that he is not introspective, that his dialogue is mostly limited to expressions of desire, fear, hatred, and jealousy. But these very limitations, these stone walls separating the character from the world of ordinary feelings, tell us all we need to know, especially when they're reflected back at him by the other people in his life. Roger Ebert on Raging Bull. Take this scene from his 1980s film Raging Bull. Let's start with the composition. We open with an objective POV, utilizing a long and wide shot to frame the boxer within the left one-third of the ring, adhering to the rule of thirds. Likewise, the three ropes divide the scene horizontally. These elements create a pleasing composition as the scene is balanced, focusing on the figure as well as the abundance of negative space. With no other opponent in the ring, Scorsese implies that LaMotta is going through a more internal fight, whether that opponent is being able to understand his emotions. Scorsese's choice to use slow motion contributes to this feeling by making the boxer's movements more graceful, as if LaMotta is dancing around the ring. Slow motion allows us to stay in the scene for much longer and conveys much more depth as opposed to opening the film with a quick, violent montage of the match. Another element that reinforces Scorsese's previous choices is his use of non-diegetic sound. The music played over the scene is an Italian instrumental symphony. Evidently, what the character is really doing, boxing, is again juxtaposed through Scorsese's choice of music. The peaceful, dreamy atmosphere that Scorsese creates in the ring furthers the notion that while boxing, LaMotta is in his natural state. Here, he can express all of his emotions as anger and violence against his opponents rather than learning how to be in touch with them. This sets up the film's central idea, LaMotta's insecurity and inability to express emotion, a contributor to both his rise through the ranks of boxing and his downward spiral in life. Across his films, Scorsese has several notable camera techniques, from tracking shots, which immerse the viewer in the scene, to freeze frames, which highlight a crucial moment for the film or character. Freeze frames allow us to feel and perceive the moment as the character would like to remember. Raging Bull has several highlighting the pinnacles of LaMotta's career. Now, let's look at the single freeze frame from Shutter Island. In short, Teddy has lived in denial and longs to return to a time before his family and life fell apart. Throughout the film, Teddy has flashbacks and his wife is a recurring hallucination. But by freezing this frame, we break the film's natural progression and focus on his wife's face, indicating that her relationship to Teddy is central to his actions and the film's development. It is a moment he cherishes and wishes he could remain in, but it is not reality. Scorsese uses his considerable formal dexterity his intimate, comprehensive understanding of how sound and image work together to create meanings and moods to conjure a tingly atmosphere of uncertainty and dread. Scorsese's camera sense effectively fills every scene with creepiness, but sustained, gripping suspense seems beyond his grasp. A.O. Scott, New York Times, on Shutter Island. Robert Richardson, the cinematographer for Shutter Island, played a key role in setting the tone of the film through his use of lighting. High contrast is used in the bulk of the film in scenes that show Teddy's depiction of reality on the island. The lighting and shadows give off feelings of dread and despair. However, low contrast and soft diffused light is used in flashbacks, particularly those with his wife, and at the end of the film as well, where Teddy is at peace and living in reality. Scorsese structured the film from Teddy's point of view, and by the end, we feel as though we are going insane with him. He manipulates the audience to feel that the reality of the island is sinister, and we are given an honest experience of Teddy's mental state, as the truth is withheld from the audience just as much as it is from Teddy. In doing so, the film allows us to sympathize with the main character despite his flaws and guilt. In The Departed, the camera work and cutting feel faster, lower to the ground, more urgent than they have in his recent films. The speed and Mr. Scorsese's sureness of touch, particularly when it comes to carving up space with the camera, keeps the plot's Hall of Mirrors from becoming a distraction. Manola Dargis, New York Times, on The Departed. The Departed is a great example of Scorsese's active use of the camera. He is also able to use the camera to establish characters indirectly. Take this scene for example. We can immediately tell that this character is resilient and works on his own terms. The use of a silhouette makes our introduction to him mysterious, as he is reduced to a simple outline. This next shot further establishes the character's disregard for the law. The shot of him crossing the street is subjective, and in the top left, we see a sign in full view stating, "Don't walk." It is revealed that Frank, the man in the scene, is a mob boss. Overall, Martin Scorsese is an incredibly versatile director. The complex and intertwined plots of each character help prevent solid good and evil lines from being established. This makes Scorsese's films more thoughtful and interesting to watch, as each character comes with their own set of morals and flaws.
And now it's all over.